Well, hello and welcome back to the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint live series. My name is Guy Stevens. I am the founder and executive director of the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint, also the host for the podcast. So you get me in double duty here today. Excited to have you here today. We've actually got a special program on board for you today. As you know, we usually are here every 2 weeks, and this is becoming more common that we have a every week kind of program. But we always look for opportunities when there's special things that we want to talk about, and we've got a great program in store for you today. The program is the Journey to Develop Reframing Behavior, a new neuroscience aligned program for educators, and you're going to learn more about that in a moment. If you are watching us live and this is your first time watching, welcome. It's always great to have new people joining us. If you're not familiar with who we are, the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint started about 5 years ago. We began really heavily focused on the issue of restraint and seclusion happening in schools around the nation. Our work has really evolved. It's not just restraint and seclusion, it's restraint, seclusion, suspension, expulsion, corporal punishment. It's all the things that are often done to kids very often in the name of behavior. And of course, we do a lot of work and focus around schools, but these things happen in a lot of different settings, and we want to see them reduced and eliminated wherever we can. So we do a lot of work to that end to not only affect changes in policies and laws, but to try to bring better approaches to people to better support kids and move away from things like restraint and seclusion. And our program today is really going to dive into that as well. We've got 3 people joining us today. We've got Connie, Persike, Susan Driscoll, and Patricia Bosco joining us today. We're going to be talking about a program, Reframing Behavior, which is a program that we actually worked on with the Crisis Prevention Institute, and you're going to have an opportunity today to learn a little bit more about that program. So before I dive into that and bring our guests up and introduce them, I just want to let you know that we do record these. So when we do these live events, as always, they are recorded. You can watch them live, but if you can't watch the whole thing live, you can come back and you can view it either on Facebook, LinkedIn, or on YouTube. So you can go back and watch it. If you prefer to listen on the go, we always encourage people to download the audio podcast version. So you can go to Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you happen to get your podcast, and you can subscribe to the podcast there as well. With that, since this is a special episode, I'm going to dive right in and go ahead and bring up our special guests for the day. And I will introduce each and every one of them with a kind of a short introduction and tell you a little bit about who they are and why they are here. I'm going to start with Patricia, who I haven't seen in a while, and it's great to see you, Patricia. You, of course, are an instructional designer, and you work at the Crisis Prevention Institute. You are passionate about creating change and growth through effective and engaging learning experiences. You're an avid advocate for designing learning that places the learner's needs, capabilities, and experiences at the center of the design process. And you were the instructional designer behind the work being done on this brand new program, Reframing Behavior. And I got an opportunity to see you a lot during the time that we were working on this. And, just a wonderful person and somebody that I really enjoy collaborating with. Really great to have you here today, Patricia.
Thanks, Guy. I'm happy to be here.
And I will introduce as well Connie Persike. Many of you know Connie. Connie has not only been a regular guest on the program here, Connie's Business Supportable Solutions has been a sponsor for our podcast. And Connie is someone that I'm happy to call not only a colleague, but a friend and somebody that I've had an opportunity to work with for a number of years now. Connie is a highly experienced speech-language pathologist, educational consultant, has a fantastic company, Supportable Solutions. Many of you have probably heard of the Y Toolkit if you watch regularly, because the Y Toolkit has been one of our big sponsors and really great product. Connie has over 20 years of experience in educational settings, holds a certificate in instructional coaching, positive education, and applied educational neuroscience, and does a lot of amazing work working with schools and providing coaching services. Well, Connie, it's always great to see you.
You too, Guy. I'm excited.
Yeah. And Susan Driscoll. Susan is the president of Crisis Prevention Institute. First met Susan, a few years ago when you had sent me an email, and I thought, oh my, why is the president of Crisis Prevention Institute emailing me? Well, it turns out that started a conversation that led to a lot of things and ultimately led to an opportunity for me to get to know you and the work that you're really passionate about. And ultimately an opportunity for Crisis Prevention Institute and the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint to work together in developing this exciting new program. You, of course, oversee the development of all products and programs at CPI and the trainers who deliver them, and for the support and care of clients who use your products. You joined CPI in 2017, and you are based in Milwaukee. And in 2022 was named the director of the company. And of course, I've had the opportunity to get to work with you pretty extensively and get to know you well. And really have you've earned a lot of respect from me for your passion and the work that you're doing. And it's been a great journey to get to know you as well. So Susan, welcome. Really excited to have you here today.
Thank you. It's always great to see you, actually.
Yeah. Well, we were talking before the show went live about, I need to see you in person. There was a time when we were working on this where, well, it was at least once a week that we were not necessarily meeting in person, but we were meeting virtually or otherwise. And, Connie and I were talking the other day. I'm like, I haven't seen Susan in forever. So, it's good to see you. I mean, the new program is launched and that's really exciting. But there's, kind of miss that weekly meeting that we had. I mean, Patricia, you might not miss it so much, but they were good meetings.
I do miss them. I mean, it was strange to go from like seeing you guys every Friday to then like not seeing you at all for a long time. So I'm really happy to be here as well.
Absolutely. That's great. So we're here to talk about reframing behavior. So reframing behavior is a new program, and CPI has released a program earlier this summer. And I thought I'd start out, Susan, with you. And just for people, we've been talking about it, through our website. And of course, you joined me for a previous interview about this. But for people that aren't familiar with reframing behavior, can you tell us a little bit about what is reframing behavior?
Absolutely. It really is designed to give teachers and all staff members, everybody in a school, an understanding of the neuroscience of behavior, but not just spreading a lot of information or throwing a lot of information. What we've designed are a bunch of practical skills that are all neuroscience based, but that can help staff members self-regulate, feel more comfortable, and therefore provide more positive support to their students. I should also add that it is the actual fulfillment, Guy, of your vision and your idea and your understanding of what causes behavior from your own experience. So the gem of the seed of the idea started with you. I was smart enough to see a smart idea, and together, and then with Connie and Patricia, we really made it real.
Yeah, and in fact, you beat me to the next question, which is, why? I mean, why? And maybe you can tell me a little bit more. But I mean, you and I had begun to have some conversations. But what led you to think like, hey, CPI needs a new program. We need to do something different.
You know what? I don't know that CPI needs a new. It wasn't from that lens at all. It was from the lens, our conversations of how do we really, what causes a restraint or a seclusion to happen? What's the traumatic impact on the person who's restrained? And what's going on with the person who's actually doing the restraining? And Guy, what I found so fascinating about you and your work with the Alliance is that you understand that staff members are dysregulated and have stress responses too, and that can lead to a restraint. So both sides need to understand what's happening with them and then develop new skills to be able to prevent restraint from ever occurring. And I think it's possible, but too often when we see these horrific stories about a restraint, it's, the staff member was also very dysregulated or had some serious personal problem. I don't believe that anybody goes into the teaching profession because they want to hurt people or they want to cause trauma. So something else happens. And, we've talked a lot about the different events, but it was really that understanding that, and CPI's basic philosophy, the staff member and the client or the student, there's an integrated experience, which we now know to be co-regulation, that the staff member can actually escalate the situation or help help to regulate the student.
Yeah, appreciate that. So Connie, I'm going to ask questions that I know some of the answers to, but really want to share with the audience. And if you're watching live, please feel free to, in the chat, let us know who you are and where you're from. It's always great to see who's coming back to join us for previous podcasts. So let us know who you are in the chat. I always see Sandra said hello and said, I would love for New Hanover County schools in Wilmington, North Carolina to bring this to our district. Sandra, it's great to see you here. So let us know who you are in the chat. And Connie, I want to shift over to you for a second. You're I know well, a pretty busy educational consultant. You developed the Y Toolkit, which was something that you put a tremendous amount of time, energy, and your life into. How did you get brought into this, and how did you get involved in this project?
Well, I met Susan actually at a conference in Wisconsin when she came to meet you. And so we were all at a conference together in Wisconsin and met Susan. And then I think I can't even remember. It's been so long, but we just connected. All of us did. And so was lucky enough to get asked to join the project. So.
And why did it resonate with you? I mean, very early on, and of course, what people, don't know about the journey to reframing behavior is, it started with some ideas and some conversations, and it began to grow. And, what would happen along the way is we would shift course a little bit, or Susan would say, I have an idea, but what about it from an early standpoint? I recall being excited to introduce you to Susan because you were somebody I'd been doing a lot of collaboration with, and thought, oh, Susan, you got to meet this person. In fact, Susan had sat in on a session I'd given, and you were on a slide, and she's like, oh, I get to meet this Connie Persike, somebody that you were just talking about in your presentation. And I remember talking kind of excitedly about it. But what about this idea as we were beginning to talk about this development of this new program? What kind of drew you into being interested in being involved in this?
Well, first of all, I think I was aligned with the belief system that we all had around helping educators see behavior through a different lens, but also CPI's they just have such a long-standing presence in schools that I knew that this would have just a big reach across the nation, across the world, because you guys aren't just in the United States. But that was really, really exciting to me because we do a lot of coaching through my business, but much smaller scale, and the scale and the amount of people you can reach through CPI is just very exciting. It just create a really big change.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So Patricia, you got involved in this project, and I don't even know the whole backstory about how Susan came to you and said, hey, I've got a new project. But this is something that's quite a bit different than the things that that you've been working on previously. And I know you had just been very involved in doing some significant work on the 3rd edition of the Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Training. And I'm sure when Susan first came to you about this sounded like something quite a bit different. How did you get involved in this, and what were you thinking about it kind of as you got started with this?
It happened exactly as how you said it. Susan said, I have a new project for you. So, and I came in and I got to meet you guys. That was the first time I was introduced to the project. We had the meeting, I think, was for 2 days, and we met at the CPI office, and it was just great discussions. And we were bouncing ideas off each other. And it was exciting because I had no idea of the content. And, like you said, I was working on a revision of an 3rd edition that the NCI program, and this was something that was brand new. So there was this whole world to explore of what kind of what information, what content do our learners need, and so it was good. And I left that day thinking it's going to be challenging, but it's going to be great. So, and then we had our meetings, and it was just wonderful because coming from an instructional design background, I don't come in with the content. It was just 3 of you pointing me to the books that you guys were looking into, articles, research, and it was this huge wealth of knowledge that we were trying to consolidate for that learner. So it was a great experience. It was a lot of hard work, but in the end, we came down and we have like this suite of products that is just like your online course, your facilitator guides, and this wonderful library of resources that's all available for whoever needs it to create this change.
Yeah, that's great. And we're going to show a little bit of that. One of the exciting things I wanted to do today in our talk was show a few things actually from the program, because I actually have had, parents and advocates and others reaching out like, hey, what's this all about? What is this new training? So we're going to show a couple of things. But, while Connie and I were deeply living in this world and very passionate about a lot of this, and of course, what I found in one of my very first meetings with Susan, one of my first in-person meetings, and I want to say it was like in Delaware, New Jersey, wherever we met, you came with this stack of books, and you had been really, diving really deeply into a lot of the books that we were talking about here at the Alliance, and you were diving into the neuroscience. And by the time we started on this course, I mean, you had tremendous expertise in these things. And Patricia, a lot of this was probably relatively new for you as you were getting involved. And, I want to point out that, in addition to your role here, if you don't mind me pointing this out, you're also a parent, right? What was this like as you began maybe to get exposed to some ideas that maybe were different from things that you were seeing before? I mean, what was this like, if you don't mind me asking, kind of in your own journey as you began to reflect on some of the things that we were thinking? And because I know that through my experience in learning the things that this course dives into, that you really begin to kind of see things so very differently. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean that is so true, Guy. That it was a personal transformation too. Like you mentioned, I am a parent of two girls, and my youngest is 3, and it's the age of tantrums, and so it's just so it would be like we'd be talking about a concept that we think would be important for the learner to know, and then that evening, I'd be like unconsciously or subconsciously applying that concept, and it would be this moment of like, oh my god, that actually worked. So so it was this just it felt so good to be able to provide, like, and one of the things that we were really strong on is we want to give our teachers, our educators, really practical skills that they can use. And I think that that came through this course. It was really, it's just simple things that you can do, and in putting that all in a package that is easy to understand, and that's just like you mentioned, you guys come from this background, so you have a lot of knowledge, but to the average new person, we don't want to give them all of that. Like, that's
Mhm.
just overwhelming.
Mhm.
So we want to distill that down to exactly what you need to do, why you need to do, and take back these really simple things that they can apply.
Excellent, excellent. Susan, I want to come back to you for a second. When I talk about CPI, of course, there's often a little bit of confusion because people think about CPI as nonviolent crisis intervention. They think about that training as CPI. So when you say CPI, that's what they're often thinking about, and sometimes they even think about it through the lens of restraint. They just think it's a CPI restraint. CPI, of course, is this company, and nonviolent crisis intervention is one of a number of training, reframing behaviors, and other. But one of the things that I still run into is that when I start talking to people about reframing behavior, they go, oh, okay, so that's part of the crisis training, and they're kind of thinking it's one and the same. And of course, that's not what this is. This, in fact, is a very different model than the nonviolent crisis intervention training that many people might have some familiarity. So can you talk a little bit about how reframing behavior is different in terms of a product and how it's offered to schools? Because again, I don't want schools believing like, oh, well, we're not CPI, so we can't use that. But can you talk about how it fits in with your other, offerings as well?
Yes. There's so many different angles that I could go at this. So first of all, our nonviolent crisis intervention training, 70% of it is actually preventative techniques. It's the restraint, the disengagement and restraint piece is only a fraction of the full course, but the restraint piece is the compliance aspect that people, traditionally bought the program for. And I would say that in schools, it's a handful of people who need to learn that those NCI skills, or even verbal intervention skills. What we learned, and Guy, I learned this from testifying with you, on laws trying to ban seclusion or prone restraint or seclusion, especially, that the paraprofessionals, the substitute teachers, the whole body of the school doesn't get any sort of training like this, even on how to de-escalate a situation. So we wanted to create a program that would be accessible to everybody in the school, and it's priced very differently than anything we've done. So for a flat rate, everybody in the school can have full access to the online course, the habit development activities, and the full learning library, because we really think it's important that everybody look at behavior through this very different lens. And that's how you create culture change and meaningful, positive behavior support. So it's a complete departure from anything CPI has ever done, both in that the business model and also the content that's included. And I would say that for people who are familiar with NCI or CPI training, this is really the prequel. This explains precipitating factors, rational detachment, the importance of that integrated experience from a completely neuroscience lens.
Mm-hmm. And the point about, a couple of interesting things about this. One, so let's say that a school is using another crisis intervention for their crisis management. They can still use this program, right? They can still bring in reframing behavior. It's totally separate from what you offer in terms of, and then you may have, yeah.
And we made a point not to use CPI terms in the core program. We have resources that are sort of, show the connections between CPI if you are a user, but we wanted to make sure we were using, co-regulation is the term in the literature. In CPI training, we call it the integrated experience. So we don't use the CPI terminology in this course. We wanted it to be representative of what's happening, in the field of neuroscience and how it applies to behavior.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that's really interesting is, the intent behind this. You talked about this is a whole school program, right? This is not just about, training that you provide to educators that are working with tier 2 or tier 3 kids, right? This is for all staff, and all staff meaning bus drivers, cafeteria workers, front office staff. And the program is flexible enough to allow people to kind of customize what they might be teaching to who. But the idea is to bring that neuroscience perspective to all staff that might be coming into contact with the kid throughout the course of the day. And I think that's really powerful. And I guess the other thing is, this is not a one and done program, right? There's more to it, and we'll dive into that more in a moment. Connie, I'm gonna put you on the spot here for a moment. And this program is developed and kind of divided into kind of 4 big sections. And in fact, that structure, as I recall, came from a conversation that you and Susan had driving back from a event, is talking about this. So, this idea of reframing behavior. Can you talk a little bit about, kind of the different elements of reframing behavior? Like at a high level, like what is this program? What are these elements that make up this program?
Sure. And you're right. Susan and I were so excited driving back from, I think we were stuck in traffic driving back from the CPI conference, actually. And we had this thought and created.
And I don't think anybody wanted to tell me there was a new idea.
No. Susan, she could do that. For those of you that know Guy, it takes him a while to shift. But yes, so there are 4 elements. Reframe your perspective, and that's when we really kind of delve into the neuroscience and help people understand what's happening at a neurological basis when when any of us experience stress or have had trauma in our history. Then we talk about reframing our awareness, so really helping staff understand and learn some really practical strategies to help them become aware of, notice their sensations, name them, and then help them navigate them. We actually go through that that process: notice, name, and navigate. And then we talk about reframing your actions. So really helping people learn some, again, like Patricia said, really practical strategies that they can use in the classroom. We absolutely give them the why and the science behind it, but we also make sure that we're giving them how to do that. And so, assuming a stress behavior first, and some strategies that you can use in the moment to help you regulate and look at behaviors through a different lens. And then the last element is reframing your relationships. So really learning some specific intentional strategies to help you form relationships with students, because we know that's so important to help them stay regulated and to help co-regulate. That's what you were looking for, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the core of the program, is really those different, kind of that structure of kind of, reframing. Patricia, I want to shift over to you for a second. And, I wondered, so you, of course, helped to develop the online, you helped to develop everything, I feel like. The online experience in terms of, there's an, a online version of the courses, there's a facilitator's guide. Like you were steering us in the direction of getting all of those things put together. But I wonder if I can just ask you to talk a little bit about, what this looks like in terms of the course. So a school signs up for this program, Reframing Behavior. Like, what's the delivery method? I mean, can you talk a little bit about kind of the online course and facilitator training and the kind of the nuts and bolts of what it looks like for a school that comes into the program and might begin?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you think of the program, essentially, there's like 3 pieces of it. And if you look at the first piece, where it's more of like you get the knowledge and the content that the program is trying to give. So that's your online course. And then there is a little application, like if you chose to do an in-classroom portion, there would be an application of that online content. So that kind of provides the foundational knowledge and skills of the program. There is also a practice aspect related to this, because we know that anything that is learned is reinforced by practice. With Connie's guidance, we developed these really wonderful habit development activities, and that is for staff to be able to practice the skills that we teach them in the online course, but a more structured and a guided way to practice these skills. And they're very flexible in the way that you want to have do the practice, because we know we're all busy people. We have a lot of things to do, so it can be adapted to schools, to educators, the way they want to do it. And then we also have this learning library, if you will, of like resources, and it's for people who are interested in learning more, and there's like, oh, I would like to know more about a certain book that you referred to in the course, or about a particular topic that was introduced, but a little bit deeper than what was there in the online course. They have this like library of resources that they can go dig into.
Fantastic. And I want to transition a little bit here, and one of the things that I wanted to do today is to actually show some things. And as I mentioned, people are often okay, well, I hear you, it's a new program, it's got these 4 components to it, and there's these things that you can do. But I wanted to actually show some things. And Susan, I had asked you if we could go ahead and do that, and you agreed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up the screen, kind of backstage tour a little bit of Reframing Behavior, and want to highlight some of the different parts of the program. And you just started talking about that a little bit, Patricia, and we'll dive into these a little bit more. Again, in this idea that this was not a one and done training, there is an initial training event, and of course CPI, part of the rollout of this is that CPI will train a facilitator for each building, how to conduct the training, how to facilitate the training. And that's a process of kind of running them through how to teach this material. And that's really important. Of course, as part of your agreement, if a school decides to implement reframing behavior, for some reason the facilitator leaves, CPI will train another facilitator. But it was really important to have like a person per building that would be able to help with the learning journey here. And again, this is not just about a single one-day professional development event and then you have all the information, you're done. This is an ongoing journey. And you talked about the learning library. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of the activities and things that can be done within the professional learning communities or staff meetings and things like that as well. So there's a lot more to it than just kind of like, okay, well, you did your training, you're all done. It really is about a journey. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Susan, before I begin showing some of these things in more detail, though, I know had the opportunity to not only sit in and kind of observe training, and of course, all of us got to see an initial kind of run through here, but you had the opportunity to do a little bit more here. Again, you've been very involved in this. In fact, while there's an entire team at CPI that has helped to bring this to life and get it out there, the three of us for a while were kind of this core team that was meeting on a really regular basis. And this was not something you just kind of passed off to somebody else to do. You were very involved in every step of the way of the development of this. But tell me a little bit about kind of that experience for you as you've seen this begin to roll out and begin to have the opportunity to see this training. Talk to me a little bit about kind of what you're seeing and how it's going and what you're learning and kind of where you go from there.
Yeah, well, I've said this from the very beginning. When you launch a product, that's when you really start to do the research, the meaningful research on what it should be when it grows up. I think we've created great content and I think it's a great experience. I'm really sitting in the trainings to understand how it'll work for schools, how we can better position it and support schools and facilitators to make it work. One of the things we realized very early on is that there's somebody usually at a district level who purchases the product, and then they might get the facilitators, but the professional development in terms of rolling it out is controlled by the school leaders or the principals or some other people. And when we were working on it, we only considered somebody would buy it and a facilitator would deliver it. And so what we've now we're working on, how do we really engage a school principal or school leadership working with the facilitator to make sure that it meets the needs. We've also realized that there's no one way that a school will deliver this. Personally, I think it's best that you go through all four elements at one time. And that's how we originally built it. But we realized that many, many schools will want to do this one element at a time over a period of, maybe like even a semester. So, we'll continue to evolve both the content and how we support teachers to make sure it works for the widest number of schools and school staff.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I know from talking to you, that CPI puts a lot of value into, understanding the needs of the customers that you're serving. And in fact, I wonder if you might tell us a little bit, of course, I know where the process was here, but for people that might be watching, we actually had this panel called the Voice of the Customer panel. Can you talk a little bit about that panel and how this program, this wasn't just that the three of us got together and had this idea, but it was informed by educators, administrators, people that were in charge of transportation services, a really broad group of people. Can you talk a little bit about that Voice of the Customer panel and how they influence this?
That's part of our program development process, is really making sure that we get the content right and, making sure we understand what the needs are of the customers who are going to be using it. That led us to really focus on the practical skills. One of the things people said is, especially these relationship skills are really interesting, but we want to be able to see what good looks like. And so we literally created the What Good Looks Like videos so that would model, what a, intentional meeting or an intentional moment might look like. So we had about 100 people involved in this panel, and we'd use them for focus groups. We'd have them test. We use them for pricing, even to understand what would make sense. What could a school afford when we put together the pricing? So we've used them at every aspect. And as I said, launching the product is just the beginning of that research. So it will continually evolve and get better as we learn more about what our customers need.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And, I think so important. And I mean, we had such an amazing group of people that at various points we went to with questions or ideas, or just as we were kind of working through the development, even having conversations with it might have just been a couple of us meeting with a school team and understanding kind of some of the challenges. I think that was really helpful. Connie, one of the things that Susan just mentioned, that you had a lot of involvement in, and it's, as I think about some of the things that I love about the program, what good looks like. And I'm going to go for a second into our learning library here. And the learning library, as was mentioned, there's a lot of different content in there. And the idea with this library is this is not a stagnant set of resources. CPI is offering this as a subscription. And the idea, of course, being that there is going to be a growing body of research in here, and we'll talk more about the kind of content that's in here in a moment. But I wanted to go into the what good looks like videos, because you actually had a lot of involvement with those what good looks like videos, and also really making sure that when we think about you went off and started working with a film crew, and bringing your perspective and experience, into helping to create these was really important, because you were thinking about things that nobody else in the room was thinking about. I know that
remembering the video, the cameraman saying, the production company that you guys hired, going, "Wow, schools have really changed since I was in."
That's right. So, and you and I are aligned in so very much here, and part of that is, this idea being neurodiversity affirming, and kind of all of these things that are really critical. And you brought that. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your experience in helping to create these videos and kind of what they're for. And then maybe if you have a favorite, maybe we'll show one real quickly to give people an idea of what this is all about.
Sure. Yes, this was one of my favorite. This was one of my favorite days in the whole project, is being on set with just watching it all play out, and they were so good. I almost got emotional by the end of the day. But yeah, so when we were on set, I just made sure I was looking. I've been in a school for my entire career practically, and I tried to look at little things that perhaps somebody, who's just doing the production or writing the script wouldn't notice. And so, like you said, I really wanted to make sure we were showing best practices overall and neurodiversity affirming practices. So, instead of making kids sit crisscross applesauce on the rug, I was, making sure that the actors that we had for kids, were rocking a little bit, or they weren't all sitting the same way. We had adaptive seating. We made sure fidgets were in the videos, those kind of things. As we were shooting the film, that's kind of the input that I would provide. And so it was really exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I'd like to share one of these, because I mean, you mentioned kind of the emotional feeling of seeing these come together. And I had the same. I mean, when I saw these videos, I was just blown away, because you could see the embodiment of the work that we were really trying to lead to. I'm going to let you pick one here. Which video would you like to like us to look at?
Also good. I really like the empathy with Mr. Rodriguez. Is
it the empathetic responding? Is that the one? Okay, let's go ahead and play that.
I like all of them, but that one.
All right, and
that one in particular is one of my favorites.
All right, and we're going to try to make this large here, and let me.
Do you have sound?
We're not hearing the sound.
Oh, you're not hearing the sound.
Oh.
I think you have to share it.
You look like it was all going well, so I was a little afraid to say.
Okay. Let's take a look and see. I will unshare real quickly and reshare and see if that fixes it. Usually that's not a problem on StreamYard, but let's take a look. All right, and bear with me.
You have your headphones on?
While you're trying to fix it, Connie, when I saw that video, it was such a aha moment for me in terms of what it really means to have empathic listening and not trying to, make somebody feel better, like immediately try to tell them what to do. But that's a really important skill in life.
Right.
And I think this modeling it is so important.
It is, because we so often want to make people feel better.
Right.
Mhm.
All right. So hopefully if things went well, we'll have sound. And if not, all right. Give me a thumbs up if you hear sound here in a second.
Oh, River, I'm glad you came. Thank you for coming. Take a seat. I've noticed you've been missing some classes. Yesterday was your 6th absence.
Yeah, I know.
Is there anything wrong? Or something you might want to talk through, maybe?
It's stupid.
Oh, nothing you can say is stupid. Go on, try me.
Everybody's so much better than me. They all post about it. They're going on these fancy trips and eating all this amazing food. They're all just, I don't know, perfect. And I'm just in that crappy apartment with my mom, and we're eating ramen like every night. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, what's the point of coming in? Nobody cares what I do.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing. I realize it's not easy. What I think I'm hearing is that you've been comparing yourself with the other students, maybe even with their families, and you don't feel that you have what they have. Am I right?
Yeah.
So what effect is this having on you?
Well, it's not making me feel good. I mean, there's all of them, and there's me, and I don't really do anything. I feel like, I don't know, I'm just empty space.
It's totally common to have these feelings, River. It really is. It's like social media is so hard, almost like it's designed to make people feel inadequate. Not to mention that everybody's just posting their best moments. No quiet nights at home with mom. It's hard. I know it's hard. I get it. I just want you to know that my door is open. Whenever you're feeling this way, if you want to come and talk, I'm here to listen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing with me again. And see you tomorrow in class, right?
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
So of course there's a whole series of these videos, and I mean such an amazing array of them. I mean, I think about kind of the video where the student becomes dysregulated, and I think about all the different things that we're showing in this, and they're really powerful. They're really, really powerful. Let me bring up
I have to jump in and share too something that I'm really proud of is that Mr. Ramos, he was a teacher. And so a lot of the actors actually have the lived experiences that they're portraying. We had neurodivergent actors, and the teacher, Mr. Ramos was a teacher in the past in a previous career. So that when you think about neurodiversity affirming practices and making sure, people who've had the lived experiences are portraying those roles, that's just something I'm really proud of that we were able to do.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, that was really important. Great. So I want to shift back here, and bear with me as I kind of, oops, get my cursor back on the right screen. And talk a little bit about the library as a whole. And Patricia, I would just wanted you to put you on the spot for a second, if you don't mind. The What Good Looks Like videos are part of that learning library. What are some of the other elements that are part of that learning library?
So I think we kind of identified a couple of things that we would like our learners to have. And like I mentioned, this is a growing library. So we have a long list of things that we would want to keep adding to keep supporting our learners. So at the moment, we have the What Good Looks Like videos. We have deeper dive articles on different topics that, like, for instance, about neuroplasticity. We touch on that a couple of times in the course, but if somebody was really interested and wanted to know more, we have those articles available. And then we have a couple of book summaries where we sort of drew some of our ideas from, and it's the books that are out there in the field of neuroscience about behavior. So the summary would provide a really brief synopsis of, like, what does this book talk about, and then, like, if it sounds interesting to you, you could go ahead and get the book to read and know more. So that was something that we have. And then I don't want to get into the habit development activities because I believe we'll be talking about that later.
Yeah, well, actually, let me just go over to Connie for a second to talk a little bit about that, about the habit development activities. So, again, not one and done. So talk to me a little bit about habit development and what the intent was with kind of the habit development activities.
I'm going to apologize. My dog's barking in the background.
For what it's worth, we can't hear it.
I think she stopped. So really, my company does a lot of coaching, and we see the benefits and the growth that staff experience when something is ongoing. And, I'm someone who does a lot of professional development that are just one day in length. But the difference between that and being able to support somebody throughout the whole year is just so drastic. And we want to make sure that we built that into this program right from the get-go. We were talking about that just because the research is so strong on, if you have ongoing support regarding things that you've learned in professional trainings, whether that's through coaching or mentoring or just ongoing, discussions about that, your skills and you're just going to learn that material at a much faster, oh geez, now my daughter's yelling at him, at a much faster rate than if you were to just sit in a professional training and listen to it for one day. So we made sure that the skills that we taught in the training, that we broke those down into small segments and really helped staff. Like Patricia said, we know from what we know about neuroplasticity is whatever we practice, we get better at, and it becomes a habit. Our goal is to build some of these skills into automaticity. And really help develop some habits. And so we developed these for the school to be able to support staff and really the research on collective efficacy, knowing that all the people are working together and learning the new skills. I mean, that's one of the best things you can do for student outcomes. And so we want to build upon that research also.
Fantastic. Susan, I want to come back to you for a second and talk kind of more generally about the program. We talked about how this program, of course, there's the facilitator training that happens, and facilitators then there's kind of a day's worth of training that can be done either in a blended format with some online training or fully in person, whatever might be the preference. And of course, schools are also, kind of at their discretion figure out like how they might want to, what elements of this training might they want to make available to their bus drivers or their cafeteria workers. And the online version, I mean, is I think really, really fantastic. I mean, certainly some people prefer to do the fully in-person training, and that's great. But this online course is really, I think really amazing. And of course, the online course here kind of breaks it into the program. There's an introduction. There's, kind of reframing your perspective, your awareness, your actions, your relationship. Can you talk a little bit about kind of this in terms of, how you're finding that schools are using that mixture of kind of the online training and the facilitator-led training?
I think it really varies by school, and schools are just starting to use this now, starting in August. So it's all very early days. We designed it, though, so that you could take the online course, which is 2 hours, but then each of the segments is 5 minutes long. So you can go back in the learning library and look at any one of them. And even if a facilitator or a school decides they're going to do it all classroom, all the learners have access to the online library and the online course and the micro learnings. So even if the facilitator didn't want to do any training, this could be, sort of self-study and available to people. And we've heard, where schools have unions and they're not the teachers, they can't require teachers to take this. We want to make it available because we think, there's going to be enough people who are interested to explore it on their own. And movements can start in a number of different ways, bottom up. Some people just get really energized by these practices and see the value of them, and the word starts to spread among other teachers. So again, we wanted to design it so that there wasn't just one way to consume the content and one way to deliver it. It's very, very flexible.
Yeah.
I should also add about this that we had to limit this course, and you guys remember these conversations, to 2 hours, and there was so much good content to put into them. So we created a whole section of the learning library called Deeper Dives, which give more information, super interesting, relevant, important information, but too much for a general audience and too much for, a 2-hour complete online offering.
Yeah. So I'm going to show something just out of the kind of the online training, just to give you an idea of where folks that are watching, an idea of what it is. And again, this is part of the, and I'm just going to kind of choose something here. And I lost my place of where I was, but this will work. I've just got a section here on reframing, think, can't, not, won't. And if I resume that, we go into a lesson. And
there's a common idea out there that students do well if they want to. Behavior gets talked about as a matter of will and intentional refusal. That student won't do what they're supposed to. But when we assume a behavior is because of stress, we look at it differently. Every person has this innate drive to succeed, to achieve their full potential. We're hardwired for survival and success, and children are no different. But the inability to do something, or emotions of fear, embarrassment, or shame, can register to the amygdala as a threat. This causes bottom-up stress responses that manifest as behavior, which means the behavior is not telling us that the student won't do something. It's telling us that they can't.
Yeah, there's just so much great content here.
We all have,
and of course, they can navigate through, and there's sections on kind of the neuroscience, the reframing your perspective, understanding brain development, understanding the impact. This is a great one, the impact of trauma and neurodivergence. So much, on threat detection, on kind of stress responses, so much amazing content here. And again, there's this option to take the blended format, to provide this in different ways to different staff as well, which I think is really, really powerful. I want to transition over back to Patricia for a moment. And Patricia, oh no. Hold on. I transitioned to you and made you go away at the same time. So let's try that again. I want to talk a little bit, and I'm actually trying to reshare a different tab here, so bear with me. I want to talk a little bit about the Facilitator's Guide. So the Facilitator's Guide is the guide that's developed to help people that are being trained in this, and then train it back to the folks in their school. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up on the screen for a second, and I'm just going to ask you to talk a little bit about this. So bear with me as I pull this back up, and we're just going to go. Great. Okay, and let me find what I'm looking for. There it is, the Facilitator's Guide. So can you talk a little bit about what the Facilitator's Guide is and how someone might use that guide?
Sure. And before I actually go into this, so the trick with designing any course really is just, and I mentioned this in the beginning, there's just this wealth of knowledge. But when you want to provide this as a training, as a course to somebody, you want to provide it in a way that is simple and it's easy to understand. And it's just, they're able to walk away with what the course is intended for them to take away. So when we designed the online course, that was one aspect, that we wanted to make it even though we were talking about really complex topics like neuroplasticity, and we wanted to make it really simple and easy to understand and take away. And the same thing kind of flows into the facilitator guide, because now we're expecting facilitators to be able to take that content and teach their learners that. So again, the whole driver behind creating this guide is to make it easy and simple, and just almost like you can pick up the guide, you've got your presentation that accompanies this, and you will be able to train your facilitators with the notes and the slides that we have provided.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of how many times you had to tell Guy and I, stop, we can't add more information. it's already been finalized.
Yes, that was some of our initial discussions. Yep, yeah, I remember. But yeah, and I'm like, I feel like I'm always the middleman, because I'm thinking of two different people at the same time. Like you guys here with this wonderful with knowledge that you have, but then also the learners who need to take that away. So yeah, that was kind of what it was.
Yeah, well, one of the things that amazes me about this, the idea behind this facilitator's guide, and the idea behind how CPI structures training is I mean, it would be great to have Connie Persike come teach us in your school, but this facilitator's guide is designed in such a way that you don't have to be an expert on neuroscience to be able to teach this course. Now, mind you, I think people that begin journeys to become facilitators will probably find themselves gaining expertise that they never knew they were going to gain, and probably even taking deeper dives into all of this. But again, it really is designed in a way that, this can be your starting place as well. You can get trained as a facilitator and then be in a really good position to be able to teach a course. And I think that it takes a lot of hard work to simplify things and to make them digestible in this kind of format. And that had to be a big challenge for you.
Yes, but it is what I do. So and I enjoy doing it. So
yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, listen, we are getting down to about the bottom of the hour here, and I made a promise that I have to make sure that I abide by here, and that was that we were going to run about an hour. Susan, I know you have a hard stop, so we're going to keep to that time schedule here. But as we're wrapping up, I'd like to ask each of you kind of the same question, and I'd just like to know something that you're proud of about this course. And kind of what your hope is for the course now that it's developed. And Susan, I see you looking up, and that up-looking look is like, okay, let me think about this. But I'm going to go to you first, because I know you're always ready with an answer.
Well, because I've said it a million times, because I said that my hope, my dream with bringing this content to market is that we could start a movement, and that by showing behavior through a different lens, I really believe, and this happened, Guy, from my conversations with you, once you see behavior through this neuroscience lens, you never see it the same way again. And if we can make that easy for everybody to understand, and, in a way that they can build skills that are built right into their school day, I think we can have massive change in education. And so it's kind of an aspirational dream, but it is really, I hope that when, CPI 10 or 15 years from now, that this is the standard that everybody looks at behavior, and restraint is no longer a thing, because we now understand what causes behavior and how to prevent.
Fantastic. And you're something that you are really proud of with this, and I'm sure, and I'm gonna add something for you while you think about that. But I'm sure you have to be very proud of your entire team, because this was a very different kind of program, and so many people came together to work on this. I remember how exciting it became when the marketing people got involved and the video rolled out that was showing this program, and the chills I got watching that video.
It's funny you say that, because this morning we had a staff party here in Milwaukee, because we sold the 500th school for reframing behavior, and it was like you and I had an idea, Patricia and Connie made it real, And then a whole team sort of brought it to market. And it was really remarkable for me to be able to just sit back and say, holy cow,
Well,
who knew this could actually happen like this?
Yeah, you weren't doing much sitting back, but I'm sure there was a moment at the end that, a very brief moment that,
it's, when you work with great people, you can just let them go and they do something that's better than you ever could imagine that you couldn't have imagined it yourself. That's when you know you're working with great people who are really passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Connie, same question, something you're really proud of and kind of what your hopes are for this.
So have we been working on this for about 2 years? I feel like it's been 2 years. And I've just noticed along the journey how much schools respect CPI and love CPI. Like it's kind of, I was a trainer when I was in the school for NVCI, and I guess they call it NCI now, right? But I didn't realize the fans that you guys had in the educational system. And so I think my biggest excitement and hope is just that this can reach so many people and it can just have such a large reach. And like Susan, I just want everybody to start looking at behavior from a very different perspective. And really understanding that our students aren't intentionally, for the most part, are not intentionally misbehaving, because that's going to help our own. I mean, we're going to show up in such a different way if we understand that, and it's going to help both the educators and the teachers in the long run, and the students in the long run. So that's what I'm most excited about. I think I'm just proud of the whole thing. Like the end product has got me so I've been so flabbergasted when I've reviewed the end product, and I really truly believe the product is a great product. And I guess if I had to pick one thing, I'd pick the videos, because I think they're so phenomenal, the what good looks like videos. But I think the whole product, the end product, is just fabulous overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Great comment. Patricia, tell me what you're proud of and kind of what your hopes are.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just pretty much echo what Susan and Connie said. Like, just proud of that entire final product. Like, it started with words on a paper, and then I have this wonderful product team at CPI that just brought to life everything, videos and articles, and the finished product. It's amazing to see what they all are at this point of time. In hopes, I guess, on a personal level, I've had this transformation as well, just in terms of applying these skills and knowing all of this new content. So for everybody to be able to make that shift in lens, and there's so many times like I would have said, I wish I had not done that, and then that's gone down a lot because I don't do that anymore, and just wishing that for everybody in schools and in their personal lives as well. That'll be great.
Yeah, and even just having the grace when you become dysregulated and realize, I mean, this work really does start and have such a big part of the adult. The other thing I have to say is that your role in this, in terms of keeping us all on task and keeping us all focused. And anytime Susan or I or Connie had some new idea, your patience, you're a very good co-regulator, even when the things can be dysregulated. So I appreciate that. This has been a great.
Can I interrupt really quick?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I have to jump to what Patricia just said, because I think, and I don't think people realize how much it can change your personal life too. And I've just seen that time and time again as we're just from my company coaching staff around the brain and the autonomic nervous system, and seeing things from a neurological perspective. So many times they've said it's changed their life. They are looking forward to teaching now. And that, I don't think people realize that impact it can have, not just in the classroom, but in their personal life. Like, I'm treating my husband different. I'm treating my partner different. I'm treating my kids differently. I'm seeing things differently from my family members. And so, that is really exciting to see.
I think related to that is that there's no shame, there's no guilt. It's a stress response. Your body is doing what it's supposed to do, and now you need to teach your body how to not do that again, right? So it takes all of that mental
Shame.
shame out of
I just told a family that I was in a meeting, and their son has a lot of big behaviors, and it's really impacted his self-esteem. He's a fifth grader now, and I said that's what I love about teaching him about the brain. I mean, it just lets go of some of that shame. It doesn't mean you can just keep doing it forever and ever, but it lets go of the shame.
Mm-hmm. And I'll share real quickly, and I know we've got to wrap things up here. Something I'm proud of is really this collaboration. I mean, honestly, I would not have imagined that, the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint and Crisis Prevention Institute coming together to collaborate on something like this. And as Susan has told the story, like it took some time. It took some time for us to reach that, but it really is powerful. I think when
it took Guy some time to reach that. I knew it immediately, but
I was just gonna say, I was on the phone with them telling them, no, this is a good thing. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? You have to collaborate with them.
But it's really powerful. And I think, people sometimes get stuck on how, kind of, good guys, bad guys, like, who you might work, but it really, sometimes we really need to come together and work with people, even if we think we might have different ideas or different approaches to things, because what you realize is that potential collaboration, when we collaborate with individuals and organizations and others that maybe we think we're in a different place, you can find out that there's a lot of commonality and there's an opportunity there. So I think anytime that, you're thinking about writing something off because, well, I wouldn't collaborate because, there's a lot of potential. I'm really proud of that. And I'm really hopeful. I was talking to an educator earlier today, and I shared this all with you. There was an educator I was talking to who said something beautifully that I often say using words, but they said the lens shift is the intervention. And what was meaningful about that to me is that this lens shift, when you get people to see behavior through the lens of the brain and the nervous system, it changes everything. It changes your personal life. It changes the way you support individuals. And Susan, we've talked about this a lot in those kind of lofty conversations where it's like, this work has potential to change the world. And I believe that, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I really believe that. And I want to thank the three of you for joining me here today and joining, for us all to be together on this journey of creating reframing behavior. Any final quick words here as we wrap up, Susan?
no, thank you, Guy. You started all of this. So if the world changes, it's because you made the step to start the Alliance. And, I think we're all very grateful for that.
I appreciate that. Connie, anything you want to?
No, just that I miss you guys. I'm so excited to be together again.
I know.
I did not get invited to the 500th party. I mean, I would have come for cake.
I'm in Wisconsin and I didn't get invited.
When it's 1,000, you're here.
Okay, sounds good. Patricia, you absolutely deserve the last word. Any final thoughts?
No, just thank you. I mean, it was a great experience, and like you're saying, I hope it changes the world.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody that joined us here today. This will wrap up our program for today. And thank again the three of you for joining me. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. So we'll see you again, I think, next week for another program.
Thank you.
Bye.